The New York Knicks come back down to earth, a 129-114 loss to our old friends in Dallas. We get into how it went down, Jalen Brunson's big performance, and perhaps some positive signs for Mikal Bridges.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, guys? You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. We come to you 5 days a week, even after losses when we really don't want to. But who's talking to you? I'm Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster, also the Saturday host of the Locked On NBA podcast. He is Alex Wolf, editor-in-chief of the Strickland the Greatest Knicks website in the whole wide world. You can follow them on all forms of social media at thestrick.land. This was a tough one. Alex was there to witness it, but we're gonna be your therapist today. But first, we want to remind you that you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. And I also want to remind you that your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. So if you're a real masochist and listening to us for 30 minutes, wax poetic on this really another tough game, you can drive the stake just a little further by tuning in to our newsletter. It's the one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage, delivered right to your inbox every single day. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with all new free Locked On Knicks newsletter, writing from Alex and I, our national writers, our fantasy writers. A lot of great content in there every single day. It was a, 129-114 defeat to Dallas. Alex, you were there to experience the pain in person. I know I'm joking a lot, and it's probably just because it's early in the morning, and that's my default. This one did not bother me quite as much as the Jazz game. Maybe it's because Dallas is a better team, even though they were missing three key pieces in Luka Doncic, Klay Thompson, and Daniel Gafford. I kind of walked away from this game just really impressed with Dallas and, honestly not taking away too much from a Knicks perspective. Season worst shooting efforts from both Josh Hart, at least in the first half. He rebounded in the second half. And OG Anunoby, who did not really rebound, 3 for 15, and was slipping all over the court in his shoes after a career-high game. I just sort of took it as a bad night for the Knicks, great night for the Mavs. But what do you think in person?
It was very similar to my overall takeaway. I mean, I was there with my friend who I'm spending Thanksgiving with, and his son, who's 4, which is adorable. So I got to distract myself from the fact that the Knicks were terrible by the fact that my friend's son was at his first game. So that was fun. All in all, I think it was just, the shots just weren't going in early. Like, my friend and I kept looking at each other and being like, they can't keep shooting 20% for the entire game, right? And they didn't ultimately. They wound up getting that number up to 46.5% in the second half, but 24% from three, with how well they've been shooting from three, is pretty bad on the overall. You can't really live with shooting 20-something% from three when you're so reliant on your offense and on your 3-point shooting and everything else. So it was just one of those where, as the shots just kept not going in, and we saw that they managed to make a little bit of a run when the shots started going in, even just a little bit. Like those back-to-back cat threes gave a lot of hope that there would be some way to dig out of the hole or whatever. And then it just went back to oh nope, they're not going to make any more shots, and that's just going to be that. They managed to keep things alive in the first half by getting to the free throw line eventually. Although I was complaining loudly enough that someone in front of me was like, you actually kind of have a point about the refereeing in the first 5 minutes of the game, which I think really set the tone, where it seemed like the Knicks were getting mugged on one end, and then we're playing, I would say, comparatively less physical defense on the other end and getting fouls called against them. So maybe that was just a little early home cooking. Then the Knicks ultimately wound up taking 30 free throw attempts for the game. So obviously that evened out eventually. But it just early on, it felt like it established a certain tone to the game. And then, my number one takeaway live, and maybe this is weird, but was the OG thing. I'm like, what is at first when he slipped, I was like, mop up that damn floor. Like, get over there. Like, what are you doing? This guy is very important to my team. Like, he can't be slipping on the
Yeah,
floor.
my personal life and my financial life. I need
Yeah.
him out there.
And then number two, he falls the second time, and I'm like, how many wet spots are on this court? And then he falls the third time, and I'm like, what is going on with him? Like, what is
Yeah.
wrong with his shoes? Burn those shoes. I hope that those shoes did not travel away from Dallas after this game, because I cannot believe that he hit the deck that many times just from a standstill position, enough to give me some heart palpitations too. Because every single time he would do that, I'd be like, oh my god, was that a non-contact injury? Like, what just happened? Why is he on the ground? And then he would get right back up, and I'm like, dude, like, what are these shoes? What were you wearing? Like, don't ever wear them again, because nobody else ran into those issues. It was only OG. So clearly it was an OG's shoes or something issue, unless he just had something bothering him with his leg and he was just bailing out constantly, which hopefully that's not the case. But yeah, it was not pleasant. And his shooting night was just awful too. I mean, talk about losing all the magic from one game to the next. I mean, he went from career best to, I would say, easily his worst game of the season, just by virtue of the fact that he cannot get a single shot to go in. So yeah, it was just one of those days. But the Mavs too. Last note that I'll say, like, just in this initial bit before we get into the nitty gritty of it all, but like, I think that they benefit a little bit sometimes against it, especially against a team like the Knicks, who have really stellar one-on-one defenders. But not necessarily the best team defensive concept for defending like the corners and stuff right now. I think it kind of benefited them to not have Luka out there, if I'm being completely honest, because if Luka was out there, they could have just thrown OG on him for the whole game, or maybe not OG with the shoes, but thrown Mikal on him for the whole game, who I thought had a pretty decent defensive effort. They had Josh Hart on Kyrie Irving to mixed results. Kyrie's just going to make some shots no matter what. But if the offense was more based on just Luka doing Luka stuff, and they could have had someone individually on him to defend him the whole game, I think maybe this one could have gone better. But because they were kind of playing the more democratic offense, just spreading the ball around and letting everybody get touches and whatever, it didn't quite feel as good. So it just felt like a team that was more designed to beat the Knicks on this particular day. So yeah, tough game. I'm kind of with you. I don't feel quite as disheartened today, just based off how good they were against Denver the other day, but still was annoying nonetheless. It was an annoying game.
Yeah, I felt similarly, which is weird to say when I think we would both agree Luka's a top 5 player in the NBA, but it resulted in this team that was super athletic, super physical, and could switch everything. And which you can maybe do with Luka, who has some Julius Randle in him, in that like off ball he's not very good, but if you challenge him one-on-one repeatedly, like he's 6'8" and smart and can move his feet a little, so he can compete. But the Knicks did not have a weak point to attack on defense, and on offense, like the ball movement was incredible. Like I rarely, maybe when they were kind of peaking in that Western Conference Finals run, or eventually Finals run last year, there was some of that, but I have not really seen Dallas under Jason Kidd move the ball like that. Nick Angstead can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, and that's more typical. But I came away like super impressed with this version of the Mavs. Like I thought, outside of the Celtics on opening night and maybe the Cavs for small stretches, the Knicks just have not played a defense with that kind of physicality. And it seemed to really throw the Knicks timing off. And you know what is like, I went on the Hot Hand Theory podcast with XJ the other day, and I was kind of talking about this, like as incredible as this Knicks offense has been, and as much as they look like a record-setting unit, like we have to like have a grain of salt that they have not played a lot of great defenses this year. And when they have played great defenses, particularly defenses that are capable of switching the Brunson Cat pick and roll, the Knicks have looked a little bit more mortal. And that happened. And I think it started with like just their timing being disrupted. Like you saw it even on dribble handoffs, like the Mavs would just kind of throw their chest into like Jericho Sims's body, and he would like fumble the ball and then catch it. And then all of a sudden there were 7 seconds left in the shot clock and OG wasn't looking, and it was done. And that combined with the fact that they just shot it like horrifically poorly, because I thought their process to start this game Offensively, they took like Brunson in particular, like against switches, and we'll talk about this more next segment, because to me this is kind of the biggest thing the Knicks have to resolve. Like, all right, like how much do you sacrifice the continuity that this group has to go at a switch, which Brunson was doing mostly to like shoot threes on Maxi Kleba, versus saying, hey, we got our switch, let's turn that into a double team and then kick the ball out and then keep swinging it so we can get the open shots we're getting when teams don't switch and when teams don't deter our initial action. So that was kind of a big takeaway. But my broader point here is when you start the way the Knicks started with OG and Hart, who, like, I think we said, what was it, a week ago? I don't know if this was still true. Hart had the best 2-point percentage of any player in the NBA. OG was bordering on a 50, 40, 80 season. And they start 0 for 12. The team starts a combined 5 for 26, 38 points in the first half, 27% from the field. They were 4 for, ESPN had the stat, they were 4 for 14 on open shots in the first half, 2 for 16 from 3, while the Mavs are 9 for 18 from 3. That is just too big of a hole, and the Knicks basically played Dallas even in the second half. I think part of it was the Mavs like turning things down a little bit in the fourth quarter, knowing they had this game. But like the Knicks, they got behind, and it was very similar to the Jazz game where the other team just had some ridiculous shot making. And it went from someone like Lauri Markkanen, who you expect to have ridiculous shot making, to Spencer Dinwiddie, who is a really good player, but one who like hasn't really been playing all year for Dallas, at least in a substantial role. They have all these injuries, and he comes in and he hits like 3 different threes where Deuce McBride was playing as good as you can defensively, and Dinwiddie was draining them. And sometimes, like especially in the regular season, you just tip your cap and say, hey, he had a great night. They had a great night. We will talk a little bit more about their great night. We will talk a little bit more about where the Knicks struggled. Some brilliance from Jalen Brunson in this one. That was great to see. And Mikal Bridges maybe turning the corner a little bit next on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we got to let you know about our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And if I'm looking on this Thanksgiving Day, that's right, we record on Thanksgiving for you guys. If I'm looking at something that I'm maybe trying to manifest for also my fantasy team, Josh Jacobs over 76.5 yards in the evening game, Dolphins at Packers. I'm trying to manifest that one, over 76.5 rushing yards, I should say. I think maybe that's a safe bet. It feels like in Green Bay on Thanksgiving, I think they're going to try to play a hard-nosed game, get after it with the ground game and try to get Jacobs established. He's also been having a really good few weeks, so I feel pretty good about that. Over 76.5 yards for Josh Jacobs. But you can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Maybe that's it. Maybe another $5 bet is it. But no matter what, all you got to do is go to FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Gavin, we're back in talking through this, quite frankly, miserable loss to the Dallas Mavericks, 129-114. I'll tell another funny anecdote, because all I can do is tell funny, cute kid stories while we're doing this to ease the pain. But at one point late in the game, my friend's kid was we got him very into cheering for the Knicks, and he was still loudly cheering for them. So, if you want to ever, know what it's like to be a dedicated fan, just see it through the eyes of a 4-year-old child who only knows to root for one team and not the other. But he was, the Mavericks got to the line. I think it was Jaden Hardy shooting free throws. And my friend's son picked up his, they gave out like a little noisemaker that was essentially like you folded up like a poster almost, and then just slapped the paper and made it make a lot of noise. He unfolded that and held it up above his eyes. And he more or less said, I'm paraphrasing, if I can't see them score, then they're not scoring. And I was like, that sounds great. That's we should all subscribe to that theory. I started just holding my hand over my eyes anytime the Mavericks had the ball after that.
Yeah.
And then the Knicks were able to come back and win. Go figure. But if it turns out if you close your eyes, all the Knicks shots go in too, if you just put that in your mind's eye. But yeah, I wanted to continue the thread on on the Knicks offense and where things eventually went in this game. And my kind of pet theory on how this all went, and I agree with you. I do think they need to keep working in better wrinkles to deal with switchy teams like this. I think ultimately what they decided to do, because Brunson sort of had it going in this game, it couldn't really shoot from three, like went 0 for 3 from three, but was getting to the free throw line, got 10 free throw attempts. Like all in all, like the floater was working, the midi was working, all of his like pet shots were working in this one. And he ended up going 14 to 21, 0 of 3 from three, but 9 to 10 from the free throw lines. Had 7 assists still, which is amazing considering the lack of shot making that was happening on this team. I can't believe he had 7. But 37 points overall in this game. I think basically the Knicks in the second half of this game said like, okay, OG can't make shots. Like Hart was having a hard time. I mean, he was 5 of 10, but I just feel like he wasn't really getting to his spots as easily. Bridges shot 8 of 19. Granted, he shot 4 of 10 from three, which is much better than it has been. But like Cat was having a hard time kind of getting to his spots. They got like basically nothing out of the bench. Like none of those guys could get free for anything. It seemed like. I think they just basically said, we have to go back to the old reliable, which is just the Jalen Brunson, like heliocentric offense. Just get him out there, get him against someone in space and let him cook and see if he can just single-handedly win this game at a certain point. And it ultimately didn't work out, but I do think that was kind of their thought process there, because it felt very similar to like, I mean, if they hadn't had as poor of a first half as they had, and if they had kind of just gone to this from the start, maybe Brunson drops 50 and things go a little differently. Because if they had a crystal ball and could have seen like, oh, OG's going to go 3 for 15 in this game and 0 of 8 from three, like they probably wouldn't have been trying to generate, those sort of shots from the jump. And Brunson would have just gone supernova like we know he's capable of doing and like he did do in this game, especially in the second half. And maybe that changes the result. But it felt very similar to like the playoff series against the Heat a couple years ago or something, where it was just like Brunson is going to have to do everything because like I'll shout him out because Quentin Grimes can't, or like nobody but Quentin Grimes can hit a shot or whatever. Like Quentin Grimes can't even hit threes, but he's literally just out there to space the floor. Like in that Miami series, like Brunson is literally going to have to score all the points. It felt very similar to that. I guess I'll take this opportunity to shout out Quentin Grimes, who clearly wanted to have a revenge game and got it. 21 points in this game, 7 boards, 2 assists, 7 of 13 shooting, 4 of 8 from three. And I mean, that guy just destroyed the Knicks in this game. And even did a little bit of his point guardy stuff that we didn't get to see as much on the Knicks, and did really well handling the ball and passing out and whatever. So good for him that he had an awesome game, but I would have loved more of those on the Knicks before he got traded. But yeah, I think ultimately the plan was just try to have Jalen Brunson win this game because nobody can make shots, and everybody acknowledged that at a certain point. And it's not ideal, but it is still good to know that at least the Knicks can still go back to that. And had the Mavs not had some of that like supernatural shot making that you referenced, maybe things go differently for the Knicks in this one.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing there for me is like my biggest fear about this team after the trade, and something like I think when I had Jonathan Macri on to talk about Cat, we were getting into it, is this team still full of competitive killers, right? And like I think Dante brought, like, obviously he is not having a good season in Minnesota, and maybe one of these days we'll talk about it in that sense. Despite some of the recent ups and downs for Cat, like the trade is looking pretty good. But my biggest concern was just kind of losing something from a cultural perspective. And like, I don't even necessarily put that like on Cat directly, because I think he's been pretty fiery and pretty competitive. But in games like this, where a team like Dallas really challenges them, and that's what you saw, right? Like a team that won its conference last year, that was missing a bunch of key guys, that came in and said, hey, screw you guys. We are still better than you. And we're going to like run it down your throats. We are going to make a lot of threes, and we're going to make you feel us defensively. And the Knicks just did not totally like have that edge that I was looking for, right? Like in terms of like how they responded, I thought Brunson, like that never seems to be an issue for him. Like he competed, like Grimes was like trying to bully him, super physical, and Brunson just like calmly, like over and over again. Like it was some John Wick stuff, right? Like throw the keys out the window, say, all right, you want to come into my office and screw with me? This is a convoluted analogy. He's like, but I'm going to cook you in my office. And like over and over again, to your point, getting to his spots, making his shots. And I don't know if we saw that from anyone else. Typically you'd expect that from OG. Maybe the shoes stopped him from going full out. But I look at Towns and Bridges, because those are the two new guys. And like Towns, I thought like he sometimes when he gets competitive, it is channeled in the wrong ways. Like he at one point got swatted by Derek Lively trying to go for a reverse layup. And then on the next possession, PJ Washington went right in, and Cat's like, all right, screw that. I'm going to be super physical. And like the first two times he kind of swiped at the ball, it was good. I was like, all right, like Cat's engaged. He's like, again, like trying to alter PJ's path. And inevitably Cat just fouls him, right? And you get to a point where he picks up an offensive foul on Grimes, actually like trying to like throw a shoulder into him. And he has 3 fouls in the first half. And Cat finishes this game, again, not his best night. And he still had 25, 14, and 4 in 35 minutes. And this was the kind of game, again, with the way OG was struggling, with the way Hart for most of the night was struggling, you could have used Cat out there for like maybe like 40 plus minutes and like taken advantage. Again, like if they were going to switch everything, Jericho Sims can't punish that. Karl-Anthony Towns can punish that. Like early in this game, they put a smaller guy on him. Bridges got lively. Bridges just cut for a layup. And there was stuff you can do to maintain your continuity on offense. But you need Cat to keep his head and compete in the right way. Mikal, I thought, had a little bit of that. And like we'll talk about it more in a sec. But I defensively, like I just want to see some fire from the guy. Like I feel like that has been absent from someone who has been such a winner for the bulk of his career. And like along with Devin Booker, like turned around the Suns franchise. So I don't know. I think that is more like existential and like intangible stuff, but I am looking for some of that against the Dallas team that like on paper, talent wise, the Knicks had way more talent, but Dallas looked like the way better team. I think because of their compete level. And of course, partially thanks to Quentin Grimes, they shot the ball just way better than the Knicks.
Yeah, and I'm with you on the Mikal front, and I think we should give him a little bit of shine for having, all in all, a little bit better of a game, especially, getting the 3-point shot going a little bit finally, although still now at 7 straight games without a free throw attempt. I'll leave that one at the door and wipe my feet and come in to try to, praise him a little bit for, I think, turning things around a tiny bit in this game. But we'll talk about that in just a moment when we get back in.
But first, we want to tell you about our newest friends here at Locked On Knicks over at Skylight. Want to celebrate with and stay connected to people who are far away, missing someone this holiday season, and want them to be part of your festivities from afar, to your loved ones live far away but wish they could be close to you. Well, we've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frames is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's incredibly easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. And what I love is the seamless sharing. Invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription required. And you can add new photos straight from your phone from anywhere. It only takes a tap on your phone to send photos to a frame across the country. It's the fastest, easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop. They'll feel so much more connected to you. And the touchscreen is a game changer. You can swipe through photos, tap to see new photos sent, tap the heart button to say thank you to the sender. It's a top-rated brand with over 1 million happy customers and thousands of 5-star reviews. And now, as a special limited-time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NBA. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NBA. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe/NBA. Get $20 off a Skylight Frame at skylightframe.com/NBA. All right, we are back to put a bow on what was a tough night for the New York Knicks. But Alex, I'll throw it to you. If you want to go to Bridges or if you want to go to attacking switches, because to me those are kind of the two big areas to finish.
Yeah, I'm good with starting with Bridges. I mean, I think the first thing, the shot weirdly looked like it should have been worse, at least early on in this game. Like when I was watching him in person, like at first they were shooting on the far basket. We were sort of seated in the corner in the 300 section. So like at first they were shooting on the far basket from us, and then they were shooting on the one closer. I think it was in the second half when he was on the basket closer to us. I saw a couple of his attempts, and like he had the first one that I think went in early in the third quarter, and I was like, okay, maybe this is something to start turning things around. But like the way that he got into the shot was bizarre. But like it seemed like he was sort of like leaning a little bit, and like it looked like an off balance shot almost, and yet it went in. So I was like, who am I to question? Then he took another one like that like was way off the mark. So maybe that was not intentional and one just kind of lucked in. But all in all, it seemed like he was shooting with confidence, which is good. Um, the midi sort of died this game, which has been our fear recently. And I guess that's where my constructive criticism would come in, and it can sort of serve as a bridge of trying to attack switches. I thought there were a number of times where he had a smaller defender on him, or someone, he was clearly looking to post up and exploit the fact that he has length over that guy.
Yeah, he was Kyrie a lot of the night on him.
Yeah, and yet he had the defensive positioning, or sorry, the offensive positioning with like poor defensive positioning behind him, where he was pretty close to the hoop. Like I think the main thing that could literally take his offensive game from frustrating to really good, if the Knicks are able to harness it and able to drill this into his head like over and over, would be just instead of turning around and like throwing your butt into him a little bit, turning around to create space and then shooting, an elevated midi, which has maybe, on the best of nights, usually a 50% chance of going in. Why don't you instead just like pivot the other way and get your shoulder into him a little bit, do a like underneath, like a rip through, try to get the ball down low and duck under the person's arm. Sorry, I just like elbowed the desk. I'm getting a little too, I'm gesticulating too much here.
Well, you got to play with physicality out in Dallas.
You got to play with physicality. Yeah. You got to like get under the guy and then try to go up for a layup and then potentially get fouled. Like Kyrie is not a great defender. Like the guys that were getting switched on to him, I feel like he was getting the weak matchup, switched onto him often, like whoever you would want to be on someone. And, he was able to generate that switch and get that. So take advantage of that more often. Like, I think that's my greatest, I said we were going to sing his praises, and yet here I am just being like, stop doing the soft move and just going up for the midi. But like, the good thing is that he's getting there, and this was like this is a really challenging game for the Knicks, I think, because they weren't able to just like swing the ball around and find open shooters that were making shots. Like they had to find other ways to try to win this game. Ultimately, it wound up just being like, let's ISO Brunson a bunch. They did do okay with getting Cat going downhill a bit, but as you said, and I fully agree, like he kind of got in his way a bit in this game where he let the physicality of the game get to him a bit, which is a problem, where he was not getting some of the calls that he thought he should be getting. And I agree with him. Like he shot 10 free throws in this game. Like I think Cat could have reasonably shot 20 free throws in this game, if everything was called but there was one point, I don't know if it got caught on camera, but he literally threw a tantrum at one point, and I was like, oh, this is over for him. Like at one point he got tangled up and Dallas ended up with the ball. So probably on TV, it was probably a cutaway to Dallas running in transition. And yet on the other end, Cat literally was like jumping up and down, stamping his feet, and then came up lame and was like, I don't think from the stamping, I think because his knee got bumped and that's what he was pissed about. But like, then like hobbles up the court. And then that was where they tried to throw the long transition pass to him. And it got intercepted by like Dwight Powell, I think, at midcourt. And then, run back. But yeah, it was just frustrating all around in that regard. But for Mikal, like, I think he's like 85% of the way there. And I think the last 15% is just going to be embracing the fact that he can get to the free throw line. Like we've seen it. Like, again, I don't want to like beat a dead horse, but he averaged 4 free throw attempts per game last year on a team where everybody, including him, with a gun to his head, would agree that he was mailing it in all year. And yet he averaged 4 free throw attempts per game. And now he's gone 7 straight games where he hasn't found a way to get inside enough to get free throws or even just get rim attempts. And I think that's like the missing piece for him. And, if they can keep finding themselves in situations where he can get mismatches, which they will often, because he's big for like the position that he is nominally playing on the court, the shooting guard spot with the starting lineup. Like he's big for that position. and maybe they put their shooting guard on Josh Hart or whatever, but he can punish that all day. So if that's the player that Mikal ends up against over and over again, like he has to punish that too, just like a Josh Hart would. Get inside, muscle his way in, and start trying to find some success around the hoop, because the mid range game we saw in this one just wasn't quite there, and that tanked what could have been. Because the 3-point shot came back around, he scored 20 points in this one, and it didn't feel like he scored 20. He could have reasonably scored 30 in this one, I think, if he was just committed to, playing a little more physical and getting all the way to the hoop more often.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was a mixed bag for him. I took this night as a win just because of the 4 for 10 on threes, like another night where after he didn't make one for 2 straight games, hit a transition wing 3. I thought that shot actually looked super smooth. Again, it was maybe like pulled back a little bit far on his head, which is sort of the litmus test for me, whether he's using his classic form or he's using his quote unquote new form. But the biggest thing is like, if he's good, like however he's going to shoot, like it just needs to be one motion, because like the 2 motion shot just kills all the momentum for him. And you see when the energy transfers there, like he has, like we know from how he shot in the mid range this year, like the touch is not an issue. Like he has great touch, and that's how he's survived and been relatively efficient despite not taking layups, is because he shot mid range shots like layups. So when you're shooting 60+% from mid range, like you can reasonably make the case. You don't have to get all the way to the rim. But to your point, I counted he was just 1 for 4 on those mid-range shots, despite having smaller defenders, despite getting good looks. And I'm with you. Like he just has so much length around the basket. Even like if he catches it on a post up, like if he's not comfortable attacking that way, just dribble it out a little bit and then take someone like Kyrie off the dribble where he could get into his Euro step. And he actually did that once. Like it was one of the few times this season we saw him pull out that move, which I think early in his career was sort of his signature move, right? Like that super long Euro step that just no one could really guard in transition or even in the half court, just because he has so much more length than pretty much any other wing in the NBA. And he pulled it off on a Gortman, whose first name I don't know, but he played okay. It was like the Mavericks, like 14th guy, and should have had a layup. And instead of taking like a somewhat tough layup, just chucked it out to the corner to campaign for 3, which I really didn't like. I want that shot to go up. There was a foul in the play, so it wouldn't have counted anyways, but would have been nice to see him take that shot. I thought his defense was a little bit better, had a really nice block on Jaden Hardy in this game. I maybe have to rewatch. I did not see any of like the obvious blow-bys or plays where he just wasn't in a stance like we saw against Jamal Murray. He got a layup cutting off a curl. He got a layup again cutting off of Cat, like 2 layups, and like should have been an attempt at a third one. Baby steps. Like I will take it for now for Mikal Bridges. I'm with you. This is again another example of a night where he could have had 30 and maybe could have saved the Knicks on a night where OG wasn't really cooking and Hart wasn't really cooking. It would be nice to see him really step up in games like this. There's still more to be done. And to your point, if you shoot 0 free throws, it is hard to have an efficient night, even when you make 4 threes. So that is part of the challenge right now for Mikal with the way he's playing. As far as Cat, I've mentioned this before, but the biggest thing I want to see from him is just stopping those like blind full speed drives. And sometimes, like especially when he's coming up as a trailer, they look really good and they work really well. But just too often it ends up with him on the floor complaining about a no call and the other team running the other way. I think the Knicks actually did a better job in those 4-on-5s. Dallas wasn't able to hurt them. But again, over time, that's going to hurt them. I think a solution there is a jump stop, right? Like when Cat has a lead, hard stop, 2 feet, and the other opposing big is just going to crash into you. You can just flip it right up for a layup. You could pump fake. They're going to crash into you. You can get to the line. He's a great free throw shooter. Unlike other bigs, he shouldn't have any fear about going to the line. And that's again, like his drives and him slowing down a little bit is a way you can attack mismatches. Though I think an even bigger thing for the Knicks that I've mentioned before, but this game just kind of confirmed it, is when other teams, what they're trying to do is put a big wing on Brunson that can also switch onto Cat. And that's how we've seen teams like sort of nullify Karl-Anthony Towns. A way you can get around that is by running pick and rolls with non-Brunson players, right? Get the ball to Josh Hart when Kyrie Irving's on him, and then you all of a sudden you have Kyrie on Cat, and that is like an immediate 5-alarm fire for Dallas. Have to double, and it feels like it's a little bit easier for Cat to play out of that and spray the ball around than it is for Brunson, who just kind of like it's like a dog looking at a steak when he sees Maxi Kleber on him, and he's like, all right, I want to go at that. And again, you can be somewhat efficient, and Brunson was attacking that kind of mismatch, but the shots you want are open threes for OG, open corner threes for Mikal, for Deuce, even for Hart, and you get that by throwing the ball to Towns with a guard on him and just letting him go to work. Final thought, I guess, for me before I'm pretty much done with this game. I'll shout out Quentin Grimes, and I will just publicly admonish the Detroit Pistons for trading a completely washed Tim Hardaway Jr., who I don't think is even playing for them right now. Maybe he's injured. For Quentin Grimes, who I never gave up on him. I made the case for years, even when he was really struggling last year. Like, there's a reason you want that guy in a playoff series. The point of attack defense is really good. I thought he was the tip of the spear for Dallas. Set the tone with his physicality. His shooting was great. His passing was really impressive. 7 rebounds, including 3 on the offensive side of the ball. And look, Dallas is like Najee Marshall toasted the Knicks in this one with 24. Kyrie Irving, some tough shot making. PJ Washington has not played great all year. I have him on my fantasy team. He was awesome. So as much as I don't like Dallas, I will just give them a little bit credit for, I think, putting together one of the better rosters in basketball that could survive 3 of their top, 6 or 7 guys being out and beat a team like the Knicks. That being said, again, like no panic coming out of this game. I thought I think the Knicks will be just fine.
Yeah, just another one where they got punched in the mouth and need to punch back. So they have that opportunity. The next NBA Cup game coming up, and actually their next 2. I think their next 2 games are going to be their remaining 2 NBA Cup games. So if those matter to them or whatever, getting Jericho Sims an extra $1 million, cool. But more importantly, they should just matter to them from the standpoint of, you got to do the same thing you did against Denver on Monday and just right the ship. Don't let a loss get to you and come back out and play much better. Burn OG Anunoby's shoes, maybe do it ritualistically to make sure that you get all that bad juju gone. If anyone was wearing, underwear that they don't usually wear for this game or something, put everything in a pile and, burn it all with OG shoes and never. That was the worst advertisement for whatever shoes he was wearing. I haven't investigated, but I will certainly.
We can say after you burn the underwear, order some Skims. That's
hey, we're not. That's not our ad today, but yeah, they are. So, yeah, get some Skims when you're done. Much better. It's the official underwear of the NBA. Anyway, all right, we're loopy enough. We're ready to go eat some turkey. So hopefully you all are too. So happy Thanksgiving, which we didn't really say yet. And do like my friend Sun did, and just put a piece of paper in front of your eyes. The next time you don't want to look at the Knicks losing, that's the way to do it. But until next time, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.